You're listening to TALRadio powered by Touch Alive Foundation, and welcome to Foodology. I'm radio host Devansh, and on this show, I talk about the enormous world of a little word called food. It's hard to imagine our lives without the daily beverages that we enjoy and crave. Some can't start their day without a cup of coffee, and others love nothing more than to have a refreshing glass of lemonade on a hot day. While some people still can't imagine having dinner without a glass of fine wine. Every culture has its own unique drinks, but most people in the world can recognize the quality of a few timeless beverages that have become a part of daily lives in all corners of the world. Today's beverages range from canned to expertly crafted cocktails, but modern day bartenders aren't the first people to invent mocktails and cocktails. In fact, there are plenty of types of weird ancient juices, nectars, and liquors that have survived in the historical and archaeological records. Unusual wines, agave extracts, and hearty ales have been enjoyed for centuries. I would love to start with an incredible drink which is worth mentioning. It is the Greek kykeon. Around the end of September, the ancient Greeks celebrated the Eleusinian Mysteries, one of the main festivals of the year, dedicated to goddess Demeter, in which it was commemorated the renewal of life and the rebirth of nature. You are sure to find mentions of kykeon in one or the other ancient Greek texts. Even though these ancient texts do not have a standard set recipe and many conflicted descriptions of this drink. The word kykeon comes from the word kaikao, which means to churn or mix till thick. Kykeon was like an ancient drink which resembled a soup. Even though having no proper evidence or a recipe, the books Iliad and Odyssey do mention the ingredients that go in for making kykeon. In the Iliad, the Greek warrior Mykeon is badly injured by Trojan Paris. Mykeon is taken back to his tent where his captive servant Hecamede can take care of him and tend to his wounds. Hecamede made a potion. She placed a bronze dish with onions in it as a relish to the drink, along with yellow honey and a heap of holy barley meal. She made the kykeon drink in a cup with Pramnian wine, which is a wine from ancient Greece. Hecamede grated goat's cheese into it and sprinkled white barley meal on it. And that's how she made the drink. In the book Odyssey, kykeon is made in a similar way, but the story is something twisted. Sorceress Circe served Odysseus and his crew a potion made of goat's cheese, barley meal, yellow honey, and Pramnian wine. But in the food, she mixed baneful drugs which would make them forget their native land, and she turned them into animals. Almost everything in ancient Greece was related to mythology. Kykeon is no exception. The two most important ingredients of this drink are barley and wine, both of which come from ancient Greek gods. Barley came from goddess Demeter, the goddess of harvest, and wine came from god Dionysus. Kykeon is most famous, however, for its use in the rites of Demeter at the city of Elixirs, where it was used by the initiates to experience the mystery of death and rebirth in the ritual which came to be known as the Eleusinian Mysteries. This mixture, however, differed significantly from the common drinks in that it had properties of causing hallucinations, most likely caused by the fungus ergot on barley gathered around the city of Elixirs. The rites of Demeter were more than just a fall festival. However, the reenactment of Demeter's search for her missing daughter and the mysterious rite which took place in the underground temple at Elixirs radically changed the lives of those who participated in it. Once communicants had taken their cups of kykeon and were led into the underground temple, it was thought that perhaps an officiant recited the tale of Demeter and Persephone or acted it out, and perhaps the communicant themselves took part in acting out the story. the next drink worth being on our list is chocolatl. We have the Mayans to thank for giving us our favorite guilty pleasure, chocolate. Archaeologists believe that chocolate, or chocolatl as the Mayans called it, was cultivated as early as 900 AD in Mesoamerica. The Mayans and later the Aztecs made a beverage from the beans of the cocoa pods that was a very popular everyday drink, but was also used in rituals and healing practices. Sounds like hot chocolate. Delicious, right? Well, not exactly. This drink was nothing like hot chocolate we drink today. We take the present-day word chocolate from this Mayan word chocolatl, which translates to bitter water. And that is an accurate description of what this traditional Mayan chocolate drink was. Now, the Mayans did not cultivate sugar at that time, and they had no other means of sweetening the bitter cocoa beans. They made this drink by crushing the cocoa beans, then adding chili peppers and water. Before serving it, they would rapidly pour it from one cup into another until a frothy foam formed on top. The Mayans believed that the chocolate was a gift to humans from the gods, and therefore should be shared with all of the people. Anyone in the Mayan civilization could partake of the beverage regardless of their social standing. The Mayans consumed chocolatl on a daily basis, much like how we drink our morning coffee. That changed drastically when the Mayan civilization gave way to the Aztecs. The Aztecs people did not grow their own cacao beans and had to trade for beans. Therefore, they placed a higher value on chocolatl drink. Only the very wealthy, the royalty and the high priests could afford to drink it. In fact, the beverage was so valued that it was served in goblets made of gold that were discarded after just one use. Chocolate was believed to soothe upset stomachs and help wounds heal faster. Aztec warriors drank chocolatl before going into battle because they thought it would give them increased strength and courage. The Spanish conquistadors who invaded Mesoamerica and defeated the Aztec Empire were introduced to this chocolatl beverage, but they were unimpressed. They found the drink to be bitter and disgusting. They hesitated to even bring the cocoa beans back to Europe with them. When they did agree to bring the beans, the Spanish monks found that they could make the drink delicious by adding sugar in it, giving us the sweetened chocolate drink that we all know and love today. Next up is mead. In simple words, mead is honey wine. It's honey and water fermented by yeast, but it can also be flavored with fruits, spices, grains, or hops. It is its own distinct category, somewhere between a beer and a wine. Mead has a long and glorious history. It is referenced in the ancient cultures of China, India, Greece, and Egypt. The earliest documentary evidence suggests that a fermented honey beverage was drunk in India some around 4,000 years ago. The ancient Greeks called mead ambrosia or nectar, and it was believed to be the drink of the gods, descended from the heavens as dew before being gathered in by the bees. Because of this belief, it is easy to see why the ancients thought mead had magical and sacred properties and would prolong life, bestow health, strength, recreative powers, wit, and poetry. Mead was presumably made in ancient times by diluting honey with water in clay or wooden vessels, and leaving the airborne yeasts and those found naturally in honey to do the rest. Today, commercial mead producers tend to use a mix of honey, fresh yeast, lemons, and water. When Indian sugar began to be imported in quantity, there was a less incentive to keep bees and sweeten foods, and the essential honey to ferment mead became less available across Europe, leading to its decline. Next up is eggnog. Most people either love it or hate it. Anyhow, it's hard to deny that it is embedded in holiday traditions. Nobody seems to know the exact origins of eggnog, but some sources suggest that it originated in England centuries ago. The name evidently came from two words: grog, another word from rum, and noggins, a word for the small wooden mugs that the drink was served in. It is believed that eggnog began in Europe as early as 13th century. Medieval monks in Britain were known to drink posset, a warm ale punch with eggs and figs. Over time, this likely merged with the various milk and wine punches often served at social gatherings. By the 17th century, sherry became the primary ingredient, and it was popular to use this eggy beverage as toast to one's health and prosperity. The aristocracy primarily consumed it because milk, eggs, and sherry were scarce commodities in Europe at that time. When the brew made it to the American colonies, it took a whole new taste and popularity. The rum that American colonists could get from the Caribbean was considerably less expensive than the brandy, other liquors, and wine shipped from England. And so, along with the readily available supply of milk and eggs in the colonies, the rum version quickly became a drink for people of all classes. Soma. It is one of the most mysterious drinks in the history of the world. Soma was a fermented juice drink which was believed to have been consumed by the Hindu gods and their ancient priests during rituals. Thought to be an elixir, its consumption not only healed illness but also brought great riches. Soma is personified by the god of the same name, who is also the god of sacrifices and who may in some texts be associated with the moon. The drink is famously described and praised in the mandala of the sacred Hindu texts, the Rig Veda. In Vedic times, Soma was a plant given as an offering to the gods. There was great mysticism and spiritual power surrounding the plant. So much so that it was considered a deity in its own right, leading many to search for the true identity of this revered plant. Many scholars believe that the plant ephedra was the main Soma plant. Ephedra grows commonly in Afghanistan and Iran and was the main Soma plant of the Persians. Ephedra is common in different places in India even today, and it is sometimes also called somlata. In the Vedas, the juice of Soma was extracted by stone, grinding, or cooked with grains such as barley, milk, or curds. Soma was often used with ghee and honey, and Soma was often called madhu. Special herbal honey preparations and herbal ghee preparations were additional types of Somas. Soma is also connected to lotuses and other flowering aquatic plants. Given its transformative nature, it is no surprise that Soma took on many different forms. While we may never know which plant were actually used, we can be certain of the importance that Soma had in ancient times. Next up is Roman posca. The Roman Empire ensured soldiers were hydrated with a mix of sour wine, vinegar, and herbs called posca, an acidic, slightly tart drink. It was made by watering down wine and adding herbs and spices such as coriander seeds. As such, this drink was full of antioxidants and vitamin C. The herbs had health benefits, and because it was quite acidic, it killed all the bacteria in the water, which was often not otherwise safe to drink. Ancient Egyptian beer. Beer was a result of agricultural revolution. As fermentation was an accidental byproduct of gathering of wild grain, it is said that beer was not invented but discovered. In ancient Egypt, beer was so essential that it was treated principally as a type of food. It was consumed daily and in great quantities at religious festivals and celebrations. Beer was an essential for laborers like those who built the pyramids of Giza. In the ancient times, the fermented barley juice served as a drink for almost the entire population and was regarded as a staple food. The beer was made from a mixture of water and barley that was heated and then fermented. That mixture was partly seasoned with fruit juice, concentrates, filtered and served as a thick, sweet drink. Sharbat. Sharbat is a drink in West and South Asia. It is derived from the Arabic word sharbia, which means to drink. The oldest mention of sharbat is found in a Persian book of 12th century. Sharbat became popular in the Indian subcontinent during the rule of Mughal Emperor Babur. As per his book Baburnama, sharbat was a favorite drink of Babur and he introduced it to India. It is said that he used to send his people to the Himalayas to get fresh ice to make this refreshing drink. Jahangir, another Mughal emperor, was fond of Faluda Sharbat. Sharbat was also popular in ancient Turkey, and the spices, herbs and fruits used in the preparation of sharbat were said to be grown under the supervision of pharmacists and doctors in the Ottoman Empire. Sharbat is usually a syrup made from fruit, flower extracts and herbs. The syrup is then diluted with water and sugar is added for taste. It is served with ice. For some varieties of sharbat such as Faluda Sharbat, milk is used to dilute the syrup instead of water. Iranians celebrate their New Year's holiday with a family picnic, eating and drinking 7 things which start with the letter S. Sharbat is an important part of that celebration, and they prepare it with fresh mint, sugar, and vinegar. Egyptians enjoy a variety of sharbats. The sharbats are mostly made of sugar and water, lemon and violet flowers, mulberries, and sorrel. They also prepare sharbat from licorice root and the fruit of the locust tree. Interesting, right? Sharbat is also an integral part of traditional Indian meal, especially during summers. The sharbats prepared with variety of fruits, flowers are combined with ice, which makes Indian summers cooler and blissful for the body. Indian sharbats can be salty, sweet, tangy, or even spicy. Last but not the least is pulque. This frothy white beverage predates the arrival of the Spanish by at least 1500 years. It is the ancient ancestor of mezcal and tequila. All 3 of these drinks come from the same family of plants, but pulque is made by fermentation, as opposed to distilling the sap of maguey or agave. Natural or plain pulque is an opaque, milky color but fizzy and bright on the tongue. Sweet but not cloying, lightly viscous but not slimy, and just ever so subtly yeasty, just like the whiff of a freshly risen bread dough going into the oven. During the Aztec era, pulque was a sacred drink, a beverage reserved for the gods and their priests. When the Aztec Empire fell, however, it became a drink of the people, produced widely around the central Mexican highlands, and a major economic driver in the area. During the colonial era, the Spanish crown tried to outlaw pulque production. Drinking pulque is a way to reclaim a part of Mexican identity that always seems to be on the verge of being lost or forgotten. Our list for these beverages could go on and on. There are so many drinks that are yet to be found out, or that have simply gotten lost in history through time. Most of these beverages have a rich history, which can only be experienced by trying drinks that have evolved out of them. The next time you are drinking wine, beer, or simply a concoction of fruit juices, make sure to indulge in the timeless stories and the history of it. Our early human ancestors enjoyed eating naturally fermented fruits and would have been brave enough to venture down from the trees to eat these fallen fruits. Eventually, our ancestors started making their own concoctions and we haven't looked back since. Thank you so much for sticking around on this episode of Foodology. Hope you have a beautiful and a magical day ahead. See you soon.